welcome to another edition of the Wealth Equation podcast. Today we have Mathew Drew with us. Mathew is a key part of a very interesting business that we're looking forward to unraveling and talking about today. The business is Goughs Solicitors. Mathew's been a key part of this business since 1991. He doesn't look that old, but he's been there since he was a trainee in 91, became a partner 8 years later in 99, and became managing partner in 2021. So I'm sure that there's not an awful lot about this business that Mathew doesn't fully understand, and really looking forward to exploring. Let me tell you all a little bit about Goughs Solicitors, because what you should be doing is jumping onto the website, Goughs, Goughs Solicitors. Really deep website, very interesting website. I've enjoyed researching it myself. It is really far-reaching in the information, the education that it's providing their target client base with. Couple of key sentences that jump out, key messages. Number one, trusted lawyers here for you. So making it a very personal experience. And the second one that caught my eye was excellence through understanding. Again, isn't it a failing of small businesses that we tend not to really understand what people want? We just want to push what we think they need to have. So that was, for me, interesting. A full portfolio of services ranging from business, corporate, employment law, through to individuals, household, family, and also employee law, which is interesting. So without further ado, Mathew, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Tell us all about Goughs Solicitors and your story. We're fascinated to hear more.
Thanks for inviting me, Ellis. Pleasure to be here.
You're welcome.
Well, so Goughs has been going since 1885. I'm not sure that I've been a key part of the business since 91, but I joined the firm in 91, having worked briefly for the Crown Prosecution Service in London. And during the intervening years, the business has been transformed. It's now a very much larger business than it was. We have 7 offices. We have about 65 lawyers, total staff of about 125.
Substantial business.
It is a substantial business. Turnover this year will probably be around about £10 million. So although I was initially a criminal lawyer and then became a family lawyer, head of the family department for many years, moved into the managing partner role in 21. So a lot of my time, probably 80% of my time, is spent managing the business.
Sure.
And I actually probably not just managing, it's really leadership rather than management. There's a lot of management in there, but leadership and strategy is a big part of my role. But we have those key services for businesses, particularly corporate and commercial. And commercial property, and then we have a really strong niche in house building and development work, and as you mentioned, employment law for employers.
Okay.
And then for the individuals, we have all the usual residential property, family, private client, and employment for employees as well.
Okay.
So that covers a good range. And what we found over the years was that there is a real benefit in dropping practice areas where you are not as strong as other firms, and departments that aren't particularly a good fit or don't particularly add that much value. So at one time we had a criminal department that didn't really fit. We at one stage did civil litigation and private personal injury work. Again, that didn't really fit with us. So we thought long and hard, but actually we closed those departments, and it's enabled us to concentrate and really specialize in those remaining practice areas, which in themselves have a broad spectrum across businesses and individuals as well.
So that's an interesting statement in its own right, Matthew, isn't it? Because again, a lot of the time in these podcasts we discuss marketing um, as a subject relevant to that individual business. So um, you've segued beautifully into that territory there. Not normally the place that we begin actually, but let's go there anyway.
Okay.
Because what you're talking about is clearly a targeted marketing choice, isn't it? I'm guessing, forgive me for guessing here, but it feels like you're strategically identifying that criminal law is not perhaps a sweet spot or a competence of the firm. Um, Now, is that decision a marketing-driven choice, or is it a human resource issue, or what kind of criteria sits behind that?
Yeah, so that was a decision that we made a long, long time ago, and it was a financial decision
Oh, really?
linked to resources as well. Um, it's sad to say that criminal law is mostly funded by legal aid. Legal aid is underfunded and has been for
Yeah,
many years.
yeah,
So it's very, very difficult to have a department that provides an acceptable level of profit if you are being paid through legally aided work.
I see.
And you need a lot of people doing it and pushing down the work to kind of the more junior people and paralegals.
Yeah,
And that doesn't fit with our desire to provide a truly excellent level of service. And that excellent level of service is provided by very, very high caliber lawyers. So criminal law, it just didn't fit in that way. Um,
interesting.
but definitely not a marketing strategy. I mean, our current marketing strategy is a mix of uh, differentiation and segmentation.
Okay.
So differentiation in terms of setting us aside from our competitors. You know, what is it that makes us different?
Mm,
And then segmentation is to really aim at some of those niche areas, niche markets. So just to give you an example of one that we have at the moment um,
mm,
is the armed forces sector, which is a
okay.
really strong, thriving sector for us. And the services that feed into the armed forces sector, I would say a large proportion is family law, but also some property related work and some private client related work as well.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So we got a the purity of the statement targeted marketing strategy, which didn't quite fit the criminal law story, which is fully understood and respected. That was a different decision, wasn't it? Different criteria. But obviously, what you've just opened the door to there is the fact that differentiating from competition and creating market segment focused activity is targeted marketing. That's
Definitely.
full on. So for the benefit of the listener, the viewer, what does the marketing machine look like, Goughs? How do you structure that engine?
Okay, well, I suppose that the probably to answer that, it's better to step back one pace. And um, it's initially driven by the firm's strategy. And so we have a 5 year strategy, and that is divided into individual strategic action plans. And so every 5 years, or sometimes we'll do a kind of a mini strategic review halfway through because a lot of the strategic action plans don't last 5 years. They might last, 2 or 3 years. So halfway through, we'll have a mini review.
Okay.
Um, but we use a book by a chap called Robert Bradford. I don't know whether you've heard of him. It's
Yeah.
called Simplified Strategic Planning. And there's a process where we spend months um, going through a lot of research, and that's delegated to individuals, sector heads, department heads, um, IT, marketing, finance, human resources. and everyone's looking at different factors, doing the research, and then it's all pulled together. And then we have an agenda that runs to about 30 odd pages. And we sift through all the data. There's a lot of, I mean, I hate the term, but a lot of sort of blue sky thinking. And after we have full day strategic meetings spread over about 6 months. The end of that process, we will have probably 8 or 10 individual strategic action plans that will then have detailed plans written for each of those, and they will see us through 2 or 3 years. And I think that that's a key factor in what differentiates us from most of our competitors, because certainly competitors of our size don't do that level of strategic planning. They might do if it's a 500 or 1,000 partner law firm, but we're not like that. So all of those things will then, a lot of those things may have marketing elements to them. The marketing team pick up a lot of their cues from that.
I see. Okay.
We have a marketing director, Laura, who's absolutely fantastic, and she sits on the board. And below her, there's a team. I think one of the things that she is fantastic at is understanding social media and the use of social media. So when we are running campaigns, they can be multifaceted, and she's great at coming up with really innovative stuff. And I suppose one of the things that I was, when I was thinking ahead of our meeting today, one of the things that we might talk about is imagination, and how that can be absolutely key in business success, and how you differentiate yourself from others.
You're giving us some phenomenal opportunities in this discussion, Mathew. Thank you very much for that description. Can we just backwind a little while, please, at the beginning of your download there? So Goughs is a medium-sized business according to the classic sort of British mechanism of 50 plus employees being a medium-sized company. So if we just remind ourselves that 1 to 49 is small, therefore, I want to say to you that everybody listening, without a shadow of a doubt, should be learning from what you said, because we rarely come across an interview where it's so defined, so defined. A lot of the questions, as you've seen from the question template prior to the session, are geared towards helping people describe how they strategically plan. How do they business plan? So to have the privilege there of listening to how people are doing it live, frankly, is superb. I want to say, you in fact compared yourself to other law firms that may or may not be as professional. I want to say any business, truly, in the small and medium sector could learn from what you shared. What an interesting proposition to sit down and say, okay, we're here today. Where do we want to be in 5 years' time? The halfway point being 2 to 3 years. What milestones are we going to be achieving in order to be on track? All sorts of cliches, right, around the plan never survives first contact with the enemy and all that stuff, right? Which is complete. By the way, I use the word stuff there quite negatively. It's absolutely true, right? We know that. So it's really, really very interesting. So can you just share, please, for everybody, what format your planning is done in? Is it good old fashioned Word document? Is it an Excel sheet? Is it a bit of clever software? How are you doing? How are you knitting these segmented plans together and sharing them across the business?
It starts with the book and the agenda, which we work through, and it is very time intensive. The preparation is all done on Word documents. But they're all shared. So we use SharePoint.
Okay, so a central
Yeah, so there's a central depository, as it were, for
Mm,
all documents,
mm,
and that enables everyone to look at everything. One of the strategic plans that we had a number of years ago now was to go paper light. And that has had, of course, tremendous benefits, not only in terms of fewer trees being cut down, but an ability to work in a much more efficient way. Uh,
absolutely.
and people can, work from home. They can work from a different country. They don't need their files with them. So that's just an example of one of the plans that we had a number of years ago that's had tremendous benefits. But it may sound a fairly simple plan,
Absolutely.
a simple aim for sure, but in terms of putting that into effect after over 100 years of using bits of paper, it was challenging at times, and it involved changing habits, changing behaviors, and bringing people along on that journey. But
Yeah.
everyone sees the benefit in their day-to-day work at the moment. So quite simplistic way of doing it through Word documents, PDFs, spreadsheets, but all centrally accessible.
Okay. Okay. So that's again for the benefit of the people listening. We're talking about leverage there. So we've got the senior or the managing partner, should I say, of this firm, describing leverage. You're leveraging technology, you're leveraging system and process, you're leveraging people. Um, Again, all high level comments that are rarely seen in small business. So that's, again, very, really, really powerful stuff. Can we just circle back around now to marketing? So the marketing team, headed by your marketing director, then disseminate the relevant parts of the main plan into a marketing plan of some description, probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have business support services. The four main ones are marketing, finance, IT, and HR.
Okay.
And so without those four departments, we'd be completely lost. And actually, we've invested tremendously in those departments in recent years. So we've increased the size of those departments, and now it's providing us with a platform where if we wanted to add an extra 10 lawyers, we could, because we have the support behind the scenes.
A replicable system. So if you had to pick one of the four to say it's the primary one, you couldn't function without it,
Mm.
which would it be?
I think they are all absolutely crucial. I mean, all of our systems, our IT systems, we couldn't do anything without the ICT system working. So if there was a network failure, a systems failure, if there was an issue with our practice management system, we are offline. We really, we can pick up the phone and speak to people, but that's about it. We
Yeah,
would have access to our emails, but little more than that.
yeah,
Um, Marketing, they generate the work, but
absolutely.
they reinforce what lawyers are doing on a day by day basis. So the best marketing for any lawyer to do is to do a fantastic job. If they do a fantastic job, then one of two things may happen, hopefully both. The first is that the client will come back again, and re-instruct when they have another transaction or another business deal, or they're selling their home, that sort of thing.
Well,
But they will be the best ambassadors that we could
absolutely,
possibly have.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Yeah, perfect answer. The other two were HR and
HR and finance.
finance. How did
Yeah,
I forget finance? How did I?
like,
Oh, that's the reason you're in business, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. So
yeah. I mean, finance is of course crucial to us, but we are very, very heavily regulated, um,
sure, sure.
because we are looking after, tens of millions of pounds of our clients' money,
Yeah,
and we need to account for every penny, and every transaction needs to be posted, with an audit trail on the day that it happens. And there are penalties if we get it wrong. If there are breaches, then we get into trouble.
Understood, and rightly so, I guess,
Yeah,
for
quite
the greater
absolutely.
good of the
Yeah.
industry. Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with this phrase. We find ourselves using it quite a lot in the channel, and also when we're talking to business people ourselves around marketing, being anything and everything that touches a prospective or existing client. And if I'm reading Goughs correctly, you're a fabulous example of everything is marketing, isn't it? Down to the way that you're presenting yourself, answering the telephones, writing an email. It's all marketing, which is, I think, I don't need to say that to you, you understand it, Mathew, but to some of the people watching, marketing is a website, a social media post, and a sign on the side of the van, and it's all done reluctantly.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is very interesting.
Ellis, you can't do enough. You can't stand still. And I mentioned being imaginative and
Yeah. Let's talk about
exploring,
that. Yeah.
yeah, exploring new ideas. So, we are great believers in, if someone thinks of something and it looks like a good idea, give it a go, give it a try. If it doesn't work, well, fine. You've learned something if it doesn't work. If it
I
does,
wondered, I wondered
that's fantastic.
I wondered if you were going to use the Richard Branson line there, but you didn't. You were far less colourful in your language. But of course, if you've read Branson's books, he has a similar philosophy. The answer is always yes, and there is a little phrase that I won't repeat when the board is sat there deliberating, should we do it or not? Let's be imaginative. What do you think, Richard? And his answer is, I'll leave you to work out what it is. And
Yeah.
usually that's the way they go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we often find ourselves as well discussing the fact that the two pillars of a business are utterly essential. Number one, marketing, and number two, people. Because
Mm.
without those two, great financial systems, great technological systems are irrelevant,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So, can you tell us just quickly what the board looks like, what the structure of the board looks like, and then how do you cascade that infrastructure, sorry, that the culture that the
Mm.
board is the custodian of down through the infrastructure? I'm
Mm.
sure people would love to learn about that.
Um, yeah, so we try so we have five core values, which are accountability, excellence, engagement, teamwork, and trust. And we try to make sure that all of the decisions that we make, whether it's recruiting a new member of staff, whether it's making an investment decision, all the board decisions that we make, we always have those at the back of our mind and try to cascade those down. And we've been really successful in doing that over the recent years. And in fact, earlier this year, we got the Sunday Times Employer of Choice Award, which was an amazing accolade because there was only one other law firm in the Southwest that got that. So, we were really, really proud of ourselves and really proud of our staff
Was
for
it
having.
specific to the law sector?
No, 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 it wasn't. No. So,
Okay,
yeah, it was broken down into categories
I
and
see. Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. So in terms of the structure, we have myself, finance partner, risk partner, so those kind of core elements,
Mm,
and marketing director and our HR director. That's the sort of the core of the board.
fine.
But then, so we have different sort of layers to the board, and other partners can attend board meetings if they feel that they want to contribute to any particular topic. So
Mm,
the week before the board meeting, there's an agenda, there's a bundle of documents, and if a partner wants to attend, then they can do. But the expectation is that they will only attend if they want to contribute in some meaningful way to one of the decisions that we're going to be making. Otherwise, you end up with 20 people sat around the boardroom table, it's not a good and efficient use of everyone's time. And it
Not
means,
effective.
it takes much longer to make decisions that way.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. So five, and any external directorship, non-execs?
no, no.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I would say that, although that we have those core five, every other board meeting we have functional managers that come in. So we'll have IT, we'll have finance in addition.
Report back on progress.
Yes, and then we have the department heads who also join for
Yeah.
parts
Excellent.
of meetings. So family, corporate, commercial, house building, etc. So there's usually around about, I'd say, a minimum of a dozen people in most board meetings.
If you're when you volunteered listing your values, which is really interesting because that was a question for me later on. Not many organizations can do that, Matthew, again, in the context of the small market, the small business market. Your first value was fascinating. Again, it's
Okay.
interesting to talk to a business leader that classes accountability as being a core value. Mainly that's something to hide from, So accountability is interesting. So are you bringing your leadership team? So we've got the senior leadership team, which forms the board, but then you've got, as you said, layers of hierarchy underneath that. Are you bringing them up for an accountability reason? Are you measuring their progress and the departmental progress versus commercial objectives, for example? Is that the principle behind it?
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay.
I think what we tend to refer to, well, what tend to kind of mean by the accountability in the context of our values is individuals being accountable for their own actions, the decisions that they make.
I
Uh,
see.
and obviously the department heads are accountable for their own department, and they produce a report every other month, which goes into a lot of detail about things like, fees billed, work in progress, number of
Absolutely.
files opened,
Mm.
uh, all sorts of kind of measure,
Critical measurement. Yeah, critical
measure
measurement.
success, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, fascinating. So again, forgive me, I can't resist the temptation because clearly you've thought this through. Why bi-monthly? Why not monthly? Why not quarterly?
Yeah, so we used to have them monthly, but one of the criticisms amongst some of the partners in the senior leadership team was that we may spend a little bit too much time on management and leadership, and quite rightly, we don't need to have reports every month.
For the
So we
sake of reporting. Yeah.
yeah, so there was those department reports, finance report, IT reports, etc. They were monthly at one point, and yeah, we realised that actually we don't need them every month. Do we need them quarterly? Quarterly just felt as though that was leaving it slightly too long.
Yeah,
We want to be able to address any issues
absolutely.
that are flagged as quickly as possible. So
Absolutely.
every other month seems to work.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to be agile. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the. Let me just forgive me a second here. I'm just going to. There we go. Recruitment, building your team. Um, you must have a first-class recruitment engine. So how is that managed by the HR function internally, or do you lean on agencies? Or just interested to understand a little more.
Mm. Yeah, but both. I mean, we have a fantastic HR team, and they use agents on occasions when we need to. Recruitment to rural Wiltshire is always challenging, and I suspect that a lot of that is that, you know, really keen, ambitious lawyers may naturally think, well, if I want the best work, if I want the highest rewards, the greatest career potential, then I need to be working in Bristol.
Yeah.
If you know, if they're thinking of the Southwest, or otherwise London or Manchester. Um, uh, and part of our challenge is to educate them that actually that's not the case. You know,
Mhm.
we can show you the work that we do. It's fantastic, good quality work, really challenging, high value, some of it complex. It's really rewarding, and actually, there's no reason for you to be in the centre of Bristol and having the challenges. And actually, if you live in the country, then you potentially have a better work-life balance at the same time. So that is a message that we're trying to convey all the time. But recruitment is and has been a challenge. Although we've been much more successful in the last year. I don't know whether it's the employment market is changing, but
Yeah,
we've had
it is
some
for sure. Yeah.
we've had some really good hires recently.
Yeah, looking at the labour market per se across multiple sectors, certainly it feels to me that there has been a shift towards the employer in the last year or so. But what matters is that the recruitment engine never is switched off. It's always running. It's a targeted marketing exercise at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And again, it's refreshing to hear a business leader actually saying, we have to sell
Mm.
to our target market there. We have to bring the talent in. Otherwise, you know, somebody else will. You know, that's
They definitely will. But I would also say this, Elliot. What I think um, we've we've had the capacity, and the kind of the stamina almost, to be really choosy. So that, you know, we've had lots and lots of interviews.
I could imagine.
People look good on paper. We interview them. Yeah, they're okay. Do they have that X factor?
Yeah, yeah.
No, no. If they don't have that, then
Mm,
we won't engage them. And we really focus on um, choosing people who are going to be a good fit for the firm in terms of their personality, their ambition, their drive.
mm,
Don't really focus on things like, you know, which university they went to, what grades they got. Um, Most qualified lawyers have the skill set to do the job. And if there
mm.
are gaps in their knowledge, then, well, we can send them on a training course, or we can train them internally. But you can't really train that sort of element of, would they be a good fit for the department? Would they be a good fit for their colleagues?
So when you mentioned imagination, it feels like through the conversation that imagination is wending its way through all facets of it to a degree.
Mm,
So there's an imaginative approach to recruitment right there, isn't there? You know, it's to create a recruitment interest requires
mm,
imagination. To hire well, the second step, we have to be imaginative. To
mhm,
induct correctly, no doubt, you're being imaginative, and then to retain the talent. So there are all four aspects of building a great team,
mhm.
right? The retention of the talent, guess what? Requires imagination. So there's interesting. Would you describe that word as being a part of the DNA of the business?
I think it is. I don't think we specifically identified it as being such, but if I
Right.
look across the elements of the business where we've been successful and what keeps us being successful, I think it is that we do things slightly differently quite a lot of the time, and we have a real attention to detail. But we try things, and our department heads and our functional managers and directors are constantly coming up with new good ideas. And I'm encouraging them to do that all the time.
Be prepared to fail, you know? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And failing is a big part of how you learn what would work successfully.
a very close colleague of mine, a guy called Philip Harvey, um, he often, he's in a very similar position to you in a partnership, and he often refers to his team, which I engage with him more. As you know, the philosophy of fail fast. Failing is not an issue, just
Mm.
fail quickly. You know,
Mhm.
figure it out as fast as you can.
Mm.
Mathew, I think probably today's discussion, we're approaching the end of it now. Otherwise, I'll be eating into your entire afternoon. But I've got a question for you that I'd like to pose. So you're now 3+ years into your tenure as managing partner,
Yeah.
but you've been with the business for 30, I mean, like
Done.
33 years, is that right? 33 years
Yeah.
plus, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we isolate the last 3 years as the head of the organization, what would you say from a legacy perspective is the fundamental sort of value or when I say value, I mean value that you personally have brought to the business. What would you say is your contribution specifically?
Hmm. Uh, I find that surprisingly difficult to answer, actually. I think it might be easier for colleagues to answer that question who are, who see things from a different way. I, I try to enable others as much as I can. I try to delegate as much as I can and support the other senior managers within within the firm. I don't want the leadership to be about me.
Yeah,
I'm really, really keen on it's not going to be this kind of show that's built around me and the spotlight on me all the time. I want it to be on other people. I want to strike the right balance between being an imaginative leader, setting the strategy fairly clearly, making sure that people are on target, um, facilitating and supporting them to achieve where perhaps on occasions things can sometimes grind to a bit of a halt. Occasionally people have the odd mental block about something and trying to resolve those and at the same time making sure that we project to the outside world just how brilliant I think we are as an
absolutely.
organization.
I hear consistency without you saying the word. There's a huge degree of consistency there, isn't there, in terms of how you're A, performing, but B, communicating that to your client, your market, and your team. So
Mm.
you said one word, only one word, which I'm now trying to remember the exact sentence that it sat in. Okay, but I think only one word jarred with me, if I'm being brutally honest with you,
Go
in
on.
the description, and that word was quite. And the
Yeah.
context was, I'm quite detailed, and inside of me, the smile was, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that Matthew's quite detailed about. I think this business is extremely detailed and well managed, and I want to say congratulations on that. It's a brilliant thing. Wish more were. Um, yeah, okay. So, final question then.
Mm.
And thank you for being put through the agony there of trying to describe your legacy. Actually, before I ask the final question, what I'm hearing from a legacy perspective, if you don't mind me downloading and reflecting, I'm hearing
You
humble.
do.
I'm hearing humble. I'm hearing structured. I'm hearing consistency. That I've said already. Detailed clearly. I'm hearing trust, credibility. In other words, a leader that is um, quietly going about the business of driving this great business forwards, not in his own image per se, but as a collective, which is a great thing. So one final painful question:
Mm.
what for everybody listening? How would you describe your leadership and or management style? You know, what words spring to mind that describe how Mathew approaches the very difficult task of A, inspiring people, and B, making sure they do what they were employed to do?
Um, I, I mean, a few things stand out. So, in terms of leadership and management, preparation is absolutely key, and perhaps that picks up on the point that you made earlier about detail. If you're going to have a board meeting, then as the person chairing the meeting, I need to prepare in a lot of detail. I need to know the agenda back to front. I need to know all the documents back to front. I need to have anticipated the arguments, the discussions, thought about solutions, and be in the best position possible to facilitate good quality debates amongst my colleagues so that we do arrive at the best decisions.
Yeah.
uh, Lead by example in terms of the dedication, and also making myself really accessible to everyone in the firm. I
Mm.
have so many meetings with everyone, and it's lovely that we're currently at the size where I know everyone in the firm, and so and having been at the firm for such a long time, and having employed, interviewed so many, including some of the equity partners, some of the owning partners of the business. I interviewed and gave them training contracts, and
Wow.
they're now fellow owners of the business. So I feel very paternalistic to
Mm.
this. So I think, yeah, making myself accessible, but also making sure that everyone knows where the correct boundaries are. I want our firm to be um, a firm where excellence is understood throughout, from the most senior lawyer to the most junior member of support staff. Um, Excellence in terms of the relationships that we have between ourselves and our clients as well. The individual relationships are really important to me. I want everyone who works at Goughs to love working for us, and to find it really rewarding, really challenging, and for everyone to know where they are in terms of their career and the career progression, and what they need to do to progress through the firm. And a big part of that also, in terms of their engagement, is allowing a high degree of autonomy. We're not peering over people's shoulders all the time. We're not micromanaging. We do trust them to do the work that we know that they're able to do.
Mm. That's interesting. That last comment there is worthy of just underlining in a minute, if you don't mind.
Mm.
Um, I felt like I was listening with due respect, Mathew, and it's not a negative. It honestly felt like I was sat in the room around the dinner table, listening to the managing partner give his yearly, I don't want to say speech, but you know what I'm trying to say there. It really did. It felt, I was listening to you thinking, I get it, totally get it. And yeah, again, I hope that people watching and listening are brave enough to say, okay, I accept where I am in my career, and I'm identifying raising the bar. Pardon the pun. That's an awful pun. I didn't even mean for that pun to come in, but never mind. So I'm talking to to a legal firm. So somebody looking at you as an example of outstanding leadership and management is my point. Um, okay, so I bet your bottom dollar that people that don't get the culture don't last long. Just keep that one short, but I'm guessing that you must have a mechanism for helping people find the right partnership if it's not yours.
Yeah, absolutely. We will always, as far as we possibly can, if someone, if it doesn't work out, we really want to leave on good terms, because we understand that when you when you join an organization on both sides, whether you're the employer or the employee, you can have a really thorough interview process. You can go through a really thorough induction process, both of which we have. But until the person starts, they're actually in the job, they're doing the work, they're with their colleagues in their teams, you don't really know how it's going to work out. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Thankfully for us, it works out most of the time, but occasionally it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then we want to part on good terms.
It's a classic reality that small business owners hang on to people too long instead of facing that reality. I had a case this morning, exactly that case this morning, with a client. So I'm going to close the session down now with 2 reflection points. Number 1, it's fair to say that every organization is a reflection of the people that own it and run it and that work within it, therefore. So I can't think of a better example in one of these podcasts where we've had the privilege of speaking to somebody that is any greater example of setting the tone, leadership by example. Fantastic stuff, Mathew. Forgive me for that, sounds trite, but genuinely, I mean that. And the final comment is, you mentioned micromanagement. Now, we actually have our own piece of software called the Accountability Plan, which is a piece of business planning software that our clients engage with. Now, it's called that and designed to create healthy, positive accountability. And what's interesting, it's my observation that in small businesses, people avoid the subject of accountability through a fear on some level in the main.
Yeah.
To meet an organization like yours that's scaled to where it is and so forth, 10 million and 100 plus employees, etc. Phenomenal job. And I want to say that's earned the right not to have micromanagement at its, as a leverage management tool, is super relevant to this conversation, because you would not have got where you were if the principles of doing things correctly and following a process weren't in place. Therefore, you don't need micromanagement. Am I making sense?
Absolutely, and people don't respond well to micromanagement. If you kind of look into the research of intrinsic motivation, for example, I mean, there are a number of factors that as employers you can influence to make sure that you boost and maximize the intrinsic motivation of the people that work for you. And giving them autonomy and not micromanaging them is one of those things. You're not allowing them to go off and do what they want. You set boundaries. You have the rules and procedures, and if there are performance issues, then you deal with it, and you be brave about it. I mean, sometimes we don't like having those difficult conversations.
We avoid the confrontation, right?
Absolutely.
And to be honest, that's the point that I was trying to really get at, is that the subject of micromanagement is negative and we should not be leveraging the technique. But there are aspects of micromanagement which fall under the framework of clear job descriptions and management metrics, measurement, accountability to a degree. That have to be. Otherwise, we're introducing management by hope, which is a whole different subject. On that basis, will you come back at some point in the future and do another podcast? Because we could have gone on all day here, couldn't we? It would be lovely to do that at some stage. Maybe
Ellis, it would be a privilege to. I'd be very happy to.
Thank you, Mathew. Thank you for being part of the show today, and
thank you for inviting
me. We will be in touch, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you.
Bye.